Sometimes, the smallest invitations carry the biggest storms. Claire had never expected life to slow down this much. After her divorce 2 years ago, her days had turned quiet, almost too quiet. The mornings were filled with the sound of her old coffee machine, the gentle rustle of leaves, and the faint chatter of neighbors she rarely spoke to. Her little house at the end of Maple Street was tidy, peaceful, and, though she never admitted it out loud, lonely. Then came Ethan Carter. He was her neighbor's son, 7 years younger, back from the city after quitting his tech job. People said he wanted to find himself, but Claire didn't think much about it. She just noticed the way his mother's porch lights turned on again after months of being dark. He was polite, kind, and had the sort of calm energy that made people want to talk to him. Claire, however, kept her distance. She wasn't looking for anything new. Not friends, not change, and certainly not feelings. But one gray Sunday morning changed everything. It had rained the night before. The sky still hung heavy with clouds, and Claire stood outside, trimming her plants when she heard a soft knock on her gate. Ethan stood there, holding 2 paper cups of steaming coffee. "Hey," he said with an easy smile. "I made too much. You like coffee?" She hesitated. It had been years since anyone offered her something so simple, so human. She could have refused, should have, maybe, but there was something open and kind in his face, so she nodded. Sure. They sat on her porch, the air smelling of wet soil and fresh brew. At first, they talked about small things, the weather, books, the noisy kids down the street. But the conversation didn't end there. It flowed easily, naturally, like 2 people who had known each other for years. Ethan asked her about her garden. She told him about the roses she'd been trying to grow since spring. He listened, really, listened, nodding with interest, smiling at the right moments. And when he talked about city life, endless meetings, fake smiles, people running without knowing why, she found herself laughing, even teasing him a little. It felt light, effortless, dangerous, in a way she couldn't explain. For a moment, she forgot the weight of her years, her regrets, her failed marriage. Sitting there beside Ethan, time seemed to slow down. Not in the dull way it used to, but in the kind of way that makes you wish the moment wouldn't end. Then Ethan said something that froze her mid-laugh. "You seem lonely sometimes," he said gently. She blinked, unsure how to respond. He hadn't meant it cruelly. His voice was soft, honest, but the words hit deeper than he probably realized. Claire forced a smile, brushing off the comment. "Maybe I am," she said quietly. "But aren't we all—" The conversation stumbled for a moment before finding its rhythm again, but inside, something in her shifted. No one had seen her that clearly in years. As the afternoon faded, Ethan stood up, stretching his arms. "Thanks for the company, Claire. I'll, bring better coffee next time." She smiled politely, but her heart was still racing long after he left. She told herself it was nothing, just a friendly chat between neighbors. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just that. Something unspoken had started. Something neither of them expected. That night, Claire sat by her window with her book open, but unread. Outside, Ethan's house glowed softly under the streetlights. She could see his silhouette through the curtain, moving around, maybe making dinner, maybe thinking nothing of their talk. But for her, it felt different. She tried to sleep, but her mind kept circling back to his words. "You seem lonely sometimes." He had said it like an observation, not a judgment. And maybe that's what made it sting, because she was lonely, but she had built her life around pretending not to be. Why had he noticed? And why, out of everyone, did it matter that he had noticed? The rain started again, soft against her window. Claire turned off the lamp, pulled the blanket close, and told herself to stop thinking about it. But it was useless. His voice, his smile, his eyes, they followed her into her dreams. The next morning, the world felt different. Lighter somehow. The sky was still gray, but the air smelled of promise. She told herself she wouldn't look toward Ethan's house. She told herself it didn't matter if he came by again. But when she opened her front door to grab the mail, her breath caught. There, lying neatly on the porch, was a folded piece of paper weighed down by a small pebble. She picked it up with trembling hands. The handwriting was neat, a little messy at the edges, and it simply read, "Same time tomorrow?" Below the words was a small, uneven, smiley face. For a long moment, Claire just stood there, staring at it. A simple note. No pressure, no meaning beyond what she gave it. Yet it felt like the beginning of something she hadn't dared to feel in years. Curiosity, warmth, maybe even hope. She tucked the note into her pocket and went inside, trying to hide her smile. She told herself she wouldn't reply, that she didn't have to, that it was just coffee. But by noon, she had already cleaned the porch table, arranged fresh flowers in a jar, and chosen a soft blue sweater that she hadn't worn in months. She caught herself in the mirror and shook her head. "Don't be silly, Claire," she whispered. "It's just a neighbor, just coffee." Still, when evening came, she found herself glancing out the window every few minutes, waiting for a figure to appear next door. Nothing yet. The porch light stayed off, and just when she began to feel foolish, she heard a soft voice outside. His voice. "Good evening, Claire," Ethan called from the fence, holding another paper cup, that same easy smile on his face. She smiled back, heart fluttering in a way she didn't understand. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe it would fade as quietly as it began. Or maybe, just maybe, that single note was the start of something she couldn't control. As she stepped outside to greet him, she didn't notice another figure watching from behind the curtain next door. Ethan's mother, her expression unreadable, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. And somewhere deep inside, Claire felt it. Something was about to change forever. How close is too close when someone finally makes you feel alive again? The next morning, Claire woke before the alarm. The sky was soft gold, and the air smelled like rain and possibility. She told herself she wasn't waiting, but she was. She kept glancing at the porch every few minutes until she finally saw him walking over, holding 2 cups of coffee again. Ethan smiled. "You kept the flowers." Claire smiled back. "You kept your promise." That became their new routine. Coffee at 9, easy laughter by 10. They talked about everything and nothing. Favorite songs, lost dreams, the smell of rain. Every word felt light but carried something heavier underneath. Claire hadn't realized how starved she'd been for real conversation, for someone who looked at her and actually saw her. One morning, she caught herself brushing her hair twice before stepping outside. Another day, she wore lipstick she hadn't touched since her anniversary years ago. She told herself it was just good manners, but deep down, she knew it was more. Ethan noticed too. "You look happy lately," he said one day, and his voice was softer than usual. She only smiled, but her heart trembled. Their friendship was simple, too simple to explain, too fragile to name. Yet every day it deepened. Then came the rain. That afternoon, dark clouds rolled in, and thunder echoed across Maple Street. When Ethan came over, they laughed at the weather until lightning forced them inside. It felt strange, him in her living room, close enough to hear her heartbeat. Ethan's eyes wandered over her bookshelf. "You read a lot," he said, picking up her worn copy of The Great Gatsby. "It's my favorite," Claire replied. "It reminds me that even beautiful dreams can end badly." He looked at her, really looked, and said quietly, "Maybe not all of them." For a moment, silence filled the room. The kind of silence that says everything words can't. And then the doorbell rang. Startled, Claire opened the door and froze. It was Mrs. Carter, Ethan's mother. She looked from her son to Claire, her expression tight but polite. "Ethan," she said firmly, "can we talk for a moment?" Ethan hesitated, glancing at Claire. "I'll be right back." They stepped outside. Through the rain-smeared window, Claire saw Mrs. Carter's face harden, her lips moving sharply. Ethan nodded, then looked back once. His eyes filled with something like apology. When he returned, he only said, "I'm sorry. I have to go." He left before she could ask why. That night, Claire sat alone with her coffee turning cold, the storm still rumbling in the distance. She didn't understand what had changed, but she could feel the wall between them now, heavy and real. Just before midnight, her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan lit up the screen. "I'm sorry about today. Can we talk tomorrow? It's complicated." What happens when honesty feels more dangerous than silence? Ethan showed up the next morning. No coffee this time, just a nervous look in his eyes. Claire opened the door slowly, her heart uneasy. He stood there, rain still clinging to his jacket, as if he'd been walking around trying to find the right words. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Claire nodded, waiting. "My mom doesn't like me spending time here," he admitted, voice low. "She thinks I'm confusing things, that I'm trying to replace something missing after my dad left." The words landed heavy between them. Claire crossed her arms, unsure what to say. "And are you?" she asked softly. He looked down. "I don't know. Maybe I just feel understood, for the first time in a long while." For a moment, neither spoke. The morning breeze carried the smell of wet earth, the sound of birds mixing with their silence. Claire's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him it was fine, that he didn't owe her anything, but her heart didn't agree. He smiled faintly, trying to lighten the moment. "I guess Mom still sees me as a kid who needs protecting." Claire forced a smile back. Mothers usually do. But after that day, things changed. The coffee meeting stopped. The porch stayed empty. Each morning felt colder, quieter. She told herself it was for the best, but her heart disagreed every time she passed by the empty chair outside. Days turned into a week. She tried to read, to garden, to distract herself, but nothing worked. Then, one evening, she glanced out the window and saw him. Ethan stood by his window across the fence, the soft yellow glow of his room framing his face. He didn't wave, not at first. He just looked, like he wanted to, but didn't know if he should. Claire hesitated, then lifted her hand slowly. He smiled. It was a small smile, tired but real, the kind that said, "I miss you too." That night, thunder rolled across the sky again. The same kind of storm that had started everything. Claire couldn't sleep. Her thoughts ran in circles until she heard it. A soft knock at her door. Her heart raced. She opened it, and there he was, soaked, breathless, his eyes full of emotion. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said. "Going back to the city." She froze. "So soon?" He nodded. "I didn't plan it this way. But I can't stay, it's too complicated." Rain dripped from his hair, his voice trembling slightly. "I had to see you once more before I go." Claire stood still, unable to speak. Every part of her wanted to stop him, to ask him to stay, but no words came out. He took a deep breath, eyes searching hers. "Before I leave, there's something you should know, the real reason I came back." His voice cracked slightly as he said, "It wasn't just to get away from the city, it was because of you. Sometimes love arrives too late, and still changes everything." Rain poured harder as Ethan stood on Claire's porch, his voice shaking. "It wasn't just to get away from the city," he said. "I came back because of a letter." Claire frowned slightly. "A letter?" Ethan nodded, pulling a folded paper from his pocket. The ink had bled from the rain, but a few words were still visible. "It was from my dad," he said softly. "He wrote it before he passed away. Said I should come here, to meet the woman who once saved him." Claire's breath caught. "Saved him? I don't understand." Ethan looked at her with quiet certainty. "You helped him years ago. He told me about a neighbor." A woman who spoke to him when he was at his lowest, when he thought his life was over. He said her kindness gave him hope again. He never told me her name, but when I came home and met you, I just knew. Claire's heart pounded. Memories rushed back. The day she'd found Ethan's father sitting on the porch steps, defeated after losing his job. She had brought him coffee, said a few kind words, never knowing it had mattered that much. She felt tears forming. He remembered that? Ethan smiled faintly. He did. And he told me, if I ever lost my way, I'd find it again through her kindness. I didn't understand then. But when I met you, Claire, I finally did. The rain softened to a whisper. They stood there in silence, the air filled with emotion that neither could name. Claire wanted to say something, anything, but her throat felt tight. So that's why you came back, she whispered. He nodded. That's why I stayed, because talking to you felt like coming home. The words hit her deeper than she expected, but she also knew the truth. They were standing in borrowed time. And now you're leaving, she said quietly. Ethan looked down. I have to, but I don't want to forget this. You've given me something I didn't know I needed. Peace. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. His touch was warm, trembling, filled with all the things they couldn't say out loud. Thank you, Claire, for giving me back a piece of him. For a moment, they just stood there, two souls connected by something invisible yet real. Then he let go, stepped back into the rain, and walked away. She watched him until he disappeared down the street, her heart both heavy and full. When she went inside, the porch light flickered, catching a small paper stuck under the flower pot. It was another note, simple and familiar, in Ethan's handwriting. It said, "Some people don't stay forever, but they remind us why love still matters." Claire pressed the note to her chest, tears slipping silently down her face. The night was quiet again, but her heart wasn't lonely anymore. The next morning, when she stepped onto her porch, a new paper cup waited beside her chair, warm, fresh, and unsigned.